Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry I'm not there today, but I was hoping to go over what we're going to do today. So in your second packet, Finding Purpose, at the very end, as we go through all of the things that we've read so far, you'll see there's two items. The first is Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail, and the second is way down at the bottom. It's Malcolm X's Chickens Come Home to Roost speech. It's called Chickens Come Home to Roost, but the actual name of the speech is God's Judgment of White America. So you can see this was delivered in December of 1963, where Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail was actually written in April of 1963. But a lot happened in between those two rhetorical items that kind of played into this full-on rhetorical battle between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King during the year 1963. So Martin Luther King was arrested in April of 1963, and from his jail cell, he actually wrote the letter from a Birmingham jail, which was actually modeled after the biblical letters from the book of Romans and the book of 1st and 2nd Corinthians, which were both written from the Apostle Paul while he was in jail. Now, Martin Luther King addressed this letter to leaders of both white and black churches in the South, but also in the North, but primarily in the South, in an effort to get the civil rights movement funneled and kind of facilitated through the church. He argued that it is God's mandate that people are treated equally, and he wanted to use the church as his primary vehicle, which actually worked, because the March on Washington, which would come later that year, August 28th of 1963, which actually is an important date because that was the 8th anniversary of the murder of Emmett Till. So he chose that date specifically, but that was planned in the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, that entire March on Washington and the famous I Have a Dream speech. So after the I Have a Dream speech, jumping forward, on September 15th of 1963, that church where the speech was planned was actually bombed by members of the Ku Klux Klan. And that became a famous event because 4 little girls who were attending a Sunday school class were killed during that bombing. It was a retaliation for things that he said in the I Have a Dream speech. So all of this kind of gets its starting point from this letter from a Birmingham jail. But here's where it gets interesting. After the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church, Martin Luther King was actually asked to do the eulogy for the 4 young girls. And during that eulogy, he again insisted on maintaining the course of passive resistance, or not fighting fire with fire. Civil disobedience. And Malcolm X, who had ascended the ranks in the Nation of Islam, became very disenchanted with this idea of sitting and waiting, or as he called it, gradualism. And instead, he began to expound a by any means necessary mantra. So one little thing happened in between that speech and the eventual Chickens Come Home to Roost speech, and that was the assassination of John F. Kennedy. It doesn't seem connected, but Kennedy was a staunch supporter of Martin Luther King, and he and Martin Luther King together were pushing for the Civil Rights Act, which would be kind of ratified into law in July of 1964. So when Kennedy was assassinated, Malcolm X delivered this speech on God's judgment to white America, or as it's famously called, the Chickens Come Home to Roost speech. The Chickens Come Home to Roost speech was a direct rebuttal to Martin Luther King's speeches throughout the year, but primarily dating back to his letter from Birmingham jail, where he uses a lot of the same imagery and biblical reference points that Martin Luther King used. But in it, he said that basically John F. Kennedy got what he deserved, or the chickens came home to roost, which is an old Southern saying for you get what you deserve. And this was not received very well by the general public and kind of got Malcolm X into a little bit of hot water with not just the general population, but also with some of the leadership for the Nation of Islam, which eventually he wound up being censured. So what does this all mean for us? So going to the assignment itself, what you are going to do, since we're not in class tonight, you're going to read both speeches carefully, and you're going to compare them. I want you to make a chart. Now, the chart is going to follow a very simple formula. You're just going to tramp both speeches. So you'll have a line for tone, and then you'll have the two speeches in the chart. And you'll try to address the tone, rhetorical devices, audience, main idea, purpose, all of the things we've been talking about. But then the big difference is going to be these two. After the chart, you're going to do a short paragraph to determine the, I'm calling it the overall rhetorical value of each work. So what do you think are the rhetorical positives of each one? So you'll have two kind of extended descriptions of how each one has a rhetorical value and how the speaker / writer express that persuasive element. And then you're going to have one final paragraph where you're going to crown a champion. So you will simply say, and the winner is, and you put Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, and then you do a brief explanation of why. So you'll have the tramping chart, and then you'll have these two comparing paragraphs, and then a final judgment or victor that you are going to crown. Now, I apologize, if we were in class, we would kind of be doing this as a group in small groups and doing this on big paper. But since we're not in class, I'm going to have you do this as individuals. So basically, this will be submitted by next Tuesday, which would then be the today when you're watching this will be the 18th. So the 25th, this is due, and you're going to submit it by then. And this will kind of start our transition into our next unit as you continue also to work on your rhetorical research paper. So you're going to work on this both Tuesday, and for my early class, Tuesday and Thursday during our lab time. And this will be due for next Tuesday class. Also, next Tuesday, we're going to, I'll take any final questions on your rhetorical analysis paper of the speech that you've chosen, and then we'll transition into our next units. If you have any questions, just drop me an email. I'll be quick to answer. Again, I apologize for not being there tonight, as I have an event at the high school that I am required to attend. Thank you.